This is ContraZoom.
Where we go back and forth about film.
I'm Dakota Arsenault.
And I'm Rachel Ho.
Now that we are past Oscar season and all the 2022 titles received full releases and the drudgery of the winter dumping grounds for terrible movies are now behind us, it is time to look forward to the rest of the year. I'm glad you liked that comment there I made.
Jesus. I just want to defend the winter this year, that there actually were like pretty okay movies, I think. Not bad.
Yeah,
not bad.
They were fine. Yeah, that's true. But today we are going to list our most anticipated releases for the rest of the year. The caveat being that they have announced release dates already. So we will not be talking about the upcoming Alex Garland film Civil War, Michael Mann's Ferrari, or Hayao Miyazaki's How Do You Live, for now at least. We have created a top 6 list each because we couldn't name just 5, and we'll go in order of release day and talk about why we are so excited for these movies. So after a few weeks off, welcome back, Rachel. How are you feeling about the movie year so far and what is to come, basically?
Thank you for having me back. Thanks for picking up the slack while I was gone, and to I think it was Courtney and Bill and Matthew for filling in as well. I really do appreciate that. So thank you very much for that. I actually don't think that the movie year this has been terrible this year. Like I know typically speaking, especially January is usually, like you said, that dumping ground for movies that the studio just knows we're not going to get anything from this for award season, so let's just put it in. But then there were some pretty good surprises, I think. So movies like Megan, that did really, really well. I think obviously Skinamarink was a movie that I was championing for a long time. There's another one that
Scream came out. Missing. Popular. Missing, yep.
Oh yeah, Missing. Missing was the one that I was really surprised by. Like, it's not anything mind-blowing, but it's actually like it's a good movie. Like, it's just a solid movie. So yeah, I think that this year it's been good. It's been good. Like it's hard to kind of say whether or not I actually last year's movies. Was it last year? I wasn't too keen on, maybe.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was the year before. But this year has been good. Like, I think that I've found a couple movies that I really have enjoyed. I don't know if maybe I have seen a couple that I think that might end up on a top 10 list at the end of the year. But yeah, I think so far so good. But I think the rest of the year, there are some really interesting movies coming out, like really big ones and then some smaller ones as well. So yeah, be fun to talk about them. How are you? How are you been, Dakota?
I'm doing great. Yeah. Had 3 very great guests come on, 2 regulars and 1 new one in the form of Courtney, and they were all excellent.
I love Courtney.
Yeah.
He's great. I was really happy when he did Hot Dogs. He's great.
Yeah. I was so happy that he was able to come on and talk about it, and definitely have to get him back on again, and the 3 of us have a chat about movies. I sort of agree. So far, this year has been pretty decent so far. And it's interesting that sort of is becoming the first quarter of the year has really been the highlight for horror movies and thrillers and things like that. They've really sort of found a home where it's not just sort of like a Halloween fall thing, that they've been able to have this life where people are really excited for these movies at the beginning of the year, and studios are sort of positioning that. I mean, like, hey, you know what? This isn't just our dumping ground, as I made a joke about, as it's been for decades, that there's actually good stuff coming out now.
I will say, though, there is one movie that did come out in January, which is probably one of the worst things that I'd seen in a long time, which was Hugh Jackman's The Sun. Oh. Did you end up watching it, by the way?
No, I didn't. That was the one where I was like, oh, cool, I'm excited because it's Florian Zeller. And then the reviews of it were so god-awful. I was like, oh, man, I hope it doesn't get nominated for an Oscar because I don't want to watch it. And sure enough, it didn't. So I was just like, I'm avoiding this completely.
Everything about that movie should have worked. Like you said, Florian Zeller, the cast is amazing. Like, it's Hugh Jackman, it was Laura Dern, Vanessa Kirby. Like, everything about it was like, this should be amazing. And it was dreadful. Absolutely dreadful. But yeah, that's one that I can say, like, that is this very stereotypical and a studio realizing a studio realizing we don't have a shot with the awards, and this was definitely like award bait, and so we're just going to shove it off into January. At least that's what happened in Canada. I do think that they made the limited, like the New York LA thing, I think they did that in time for consideration, but in terms of a wide release, it was very quiet and just kind of, hopefully no one notices this movie. But anyways, positive thinking is there's some great ones coming up. And I think you're right. Like, I think it's really cool that horror movies have found a spot to kind of a spot that's like unencumbered by a bunch of big, flashy films, which is what usually happens in October, which is what we kind of consider more the spooky month. So it's nice that they have this time. I will say, though, as a fan of science fiction, I kind of am missing good science fiction. I don't think that there has been really great science fiction lately. And I think most of that is because horror is really having a moment right now. And good for horror fans. I'm really happy for you all. But yeah, I would like some sci-fi personally.
Yeah. I also want to ask, you've already covered several film festivals this year. Are you feeling hopeful for the rest of the year because that's the one thing is like when you're trying to look forward to the rest of the year, it's like, I have no idea what's going to come out of TIFF or the other festivals of that time of what's going to be, the movie of the year. And so you look back when we do shows like this, we're mostly naming popular films that people are already sort of know about, made by well-known directors and stuff like that, and we don't know what's going to be the big breakout sort of thing. As you've been sort of covering, because I know you covered Sundance and some other festivals, are you sort of excited about what's to come for the rest of the year?
Not in that sense. No, I will admit, like Sundance, I found it a little disappointing this year. And I thought it was just me. I think I haven't been doing this for very long, so I kind of thought maybe I'm missing something. Like I was panicking a little bit during Sundance because I thought I haven't seen anything that I am crazy. Actually, that's not true. The Michael J. Fox documentary, which is out on Apple right now. And if you haven't seen it, I would highly recommend you go watch it. It's an incredible documentary. Other than that, though, there was nothing from Sundance that jumped out at me that I was like, I cannot wait for people to watch this. Like I watched Living last year, right? And I immediately told you, this is your movie. Go watch it. You're going to love it. And After Yang, I think was another one at Sundance that I really, really loved. There was just nothing like that for me this year. And I genuinely was panicking. I was like messaging people who I knew were also covering it. I'm like, guys, what are you watching? Because I'm struggling to find anything. And everybody else was kind of like, yeah, no, same thing. I haven't really found that thing yet either. So then at least that was good that it wasn't just me. But, there were I'm trying to think if there was anything interesting. I know Magazine Dreams made a big hit.
Don't talk about
Sundance,
that one.
which is kind of, no, I don't want to say unfortunate because there are much more important things to consider about this, but it's like that had a lot of buzz. And then that came around the time that I think Ant-Man came out not that shortly after.
And
like
Creed
I think it was
3.
very quick. And so there was a lot of buzz about a certain actor. It was like, oh, this is going to be really exciting. And tons of people wrote articles about like, this is the year of so-and-so, and obviously that's gone. So, and again, there's much more important things than just, this movie now. Because I think it was meant to have a release towards the end of the year as an Oscar kind of an awards bait movie. And I actually think it would have done really well. I don't think it's going to do that well anymore. But yeah, other than that, it's unfortunate. I can't really say that there's anything that I've seen at a film festival that I'm truly buzzing about. Like, I actually don't think I've messaged you and said, hey, I just watched this thing. Like, keep an eye out for it.
Yeah. You haven't yet this year.
Yeah, I haven't done that yet. And that's not me hoarding movies to myself and saying, like, I'm not going to tell Dakota.
I'd be very disappointed if that was the case.
Yeah. It's just I haven't seen anything that, one, has either piqued my interest, or two, something that I saw that I thought, oh, Dakota's really going to like this.
Yeah.
Because I normally would tell you, but there hasn't been that thing. But, TIFF is still there. And Cannes, even out of Cannes has become, I don't know if this is a hot take, but I feel like Cannes has become almost like a place where it's the mainstream movies that we already know are going to make a good thing. Like, it's not anything that you go, oh, I haven't heard of this before. Whereas, like, I think TIFF and even Venice, to an extent, I think the two of them have that kind of lock of, like, movies that we haven't really heard of yet. Whereas Cannes it's a lot of big films that we have heard about for the last year, and they're just getting their premiere at Cannes. So it's not like it's a surprise that Killers of the Flower Moon is going to be good. Like, we know that, and we're all, like, very excited for it. So, yeah, I don't know. what's the other one? Oh, Berlin. I guess Berlin was the other big film festival that came out. And Blackberry premiered there, which was an excellent Canadian movie. So another one that if you haven't seen that, go check it out.
Very excellent, yes. All right, cool. Well,
you watched that. I forgot that you saw that one too.
Absolutely loved it. That was such a Dakota movie.
Have you seen Fast X?
No, Rachel, that is not a Dakota movie.
It wasn't a Rachel movie either. It wasn't bad, but it was not a Rachel movie.
Did you have to review that movie?
I did, and I like to be. It's what I find those movies really difficult to review personally because I loved the first one. I was obsessed. Anybody who knew me in grade 9 knows that I was obsessed with that movie when it came out. And then this franchise has just gone so off the rails that I haven't really been able to keep on top of it. So when I went to go watch it, I actually watched it with someone. I brought someone who's like a friend of mine from high school. And we were talking about like how much I love this movie. And we were sitting there like, this is a bad movie. but then I was like, but is it bad? Like, I know that people who love this franchise, they're going to love this movie. That's the thing. Like, they are going to enjoy it. I can see where someone can find enjoyment out of this. And I was like, I just, yeah. I don't think I was that harsh on it, though. I think it's just like, you have to kind of accept Fast and Furious for what it is. If you can accept it for what it is now, then I think Fast X works for you.
What you should have done for your review is, when you're rating it, giving it 5 stars for people who are a fan of the franchise and 1 star for everyone else that is not a fan of the franchise. Because you're like, whatever, it's not going to make a difference what rating I give this. You're either going to love this movie or not.
It's true. And in a sense, I kind of split the difference in that way. Like, of just saying, like, if you're a fan of this, you'll love it. If this isn't for you, why are you even watching it, to be honest?
Why are you
like,
reading
you're
this?
at the 10th movie of a franchise. If you haven't gone on board for Fast and Furious, why are you watching Fast X? Like, this is not your movie. And so in that, I find those movies difficult to write or to review, but I also find them kind of the most interesting to review because I think it like makes your brain work in a bit of a different way. But it's not, Jason Momoa is great in it. I will put that out there. He is an excellent Fast and Furious addition. And I was curious that on Twitter, I noticed that they kind of, in my opinion, something that was a bit of a spoiler, and I'm not going to say what it is here, but they were just like very loose with it online. They were just like, hey, yeah, this person's back. I was like, what the hell? Like, that to me was a bit of a spoiler, but they evidently saw no problems in unleashing that information. And it was before the movie premiered too. Like, critics had seen it and maybe some advanced audiences had seen it, but it wasn't out yet. So I was like, why are you guys mentioning this already? But whatever.
You know, they were worried about ticket sales.
Doing really well, isn't it? Like, it's gonna. I think it's gonna be it's gonna be a billion movie, isn't it?
I wouldn't shock me in the slightest.
I mean, Mario Brothers is good old Mario. I like that movie. I don't care what people say. That was a fun movie.
I haven't seen it yet. I'm gonna see it, and then I'll have an opinion on it too. But let's get talking about movies that are coming out for the rest of the year. Sure. So, like I said earlier, we tried to do a top 5 list, couldn't narrow it down, so we've got a top 6 list each, with some overlap, but we still split it up. So we have 6 individual picks, and we can kind of piggyback on each of our picks. So we're going to go in chronological order of which they come out. So the first movie we're going to talk about is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which is coming out on June 2nd.
My name is Miles Morales. I'm Brooklyn's one and only Spider-Man. And things are going great.
Oh, yeah. You were supposed to be here at 5.
All right, whatever.
Whatever?
Wow.
Whatever?
So are you like a cow or a Dalmatian?
I am the Spot. That's not funny.
Don't do that.
Miles's grades are pretty good. A in AP Physics.
That's my little man.
And a B in Spanish.
What?
Ooh, okay.
Miles.
Are you trying
Mira,
to
eso es imposible.
I gotta go. All right, bye.
He's lying to you. And I think you know it.
This is the second movie in the animated Spider-Verse franchise now. And I think the first one was kind of a bit of a surprise hit. I remember when the trailers had first come out for it, I was like, this kind of looks a little weird. And then I saw it in person and was just absolutely blown away by it. And I think the stature of it has only grown. And I don't think it is out of place to call the first Spider-Verse movie A, one of the greatest superhero movies of all time, and B, one of the greatest animated movies of all time, which is pretty crazy that it's able to kind of check those 2 boxes. and basically no one argues with that. And the whole, the team that is producing is back, but it's different directors, but the directors still look like they have, the same quality. Lord and Miller are back as the writers and producers. The cast is all back. They've got a fantastic cast. Very, very excited about this. And I don't know what you can say. Like, if you're a fan of the first Spider-Verse, you obviously are very excited for this. It's going to be a two-parter. And if you haven't seen the first one, go watch the first Spider-Verse movie. It is incredible.
It's amazing. I love this. Like, I don't know what I was expecting. When did the first one come out now? I feel like it was so long ago. I really can't remember what I was expecting going into that one. But I remember watching it in a theater. Sorry?
It was 2018.
Oh, that feels like a million years ago at this point. 2018. Wow, so much has happened. But I remember watching it in theater, and just like when it ended, I watched it with my brother, and the two of us just kind of looked at each other after it was done. We're like, holy shit, like this is really good. Yeah. Because we both, as most people around our age, like we grew up with the animated Spider-Man. That was our Spider-Man that we were most familiar with, was the TV show. And that to me still remains one of the greatest kind of Spider-Man interpretations across media. And so the idea that they were going to do, because before that they had done the Tobey Maguire stuff, and I think Andrew Garfield, his was in the midst of going as well. And not to say I didn't like those, but they didn't really grab me in the same way that the animated one did. To be fair, I was like a child when the animated one came out. But this one was just, it blew my mind. And then, like you alluded to, it's like, it wasn't just that it was Spider-Man. The animation was just gorgeous. It was such a unique way of putting an animated movie together that a lot of kind of movies have since, not a lot, but Puss in Boots is one that I can think of that, I don't want to say copied.
The Mitchells versus the Machines.
Yes, Mitchells versus the Machine. Yeah. But that was a
Lord and Miller as well, yeah.
Right. So I just feel like it's inspired and influenced animation as a medium, and I think that that's impressive in its own way. Any film that you can start something, that you pioneer something, I think that's incredible. I can't wait for the second one. I'm a little nervous because I was like, the first one was so good. I don't know how you can top that one, but I'm just excited to watch that type of animation with Spider-Man again.
There's something really novel about the concept of actually seeing the animation. And we're going to talk about Pixar later. And, as gorgeous as their films are, they don't look like animated films anymore. They're literally bordering on photorealism at this point, which is absolutely incredible that you can do that. And computers and artists are talented enough to be able to replicate that. But there is something said about being able to see the animation and appreciating the artwork of it.
Completely agree with you. I love animated movies. I'm a really big fan of them, and that's something that my gripe with Disney has been, because again, if you're around our age, like if you're kind of like in your 30s at this point, you probably grew up watching those classic Disney movies, and older than us, obviously. Yeah. You grew up watching the classic Disney, like the Disney of the late 80s, early 90s, which was the 2D flat, hand-drawn, beautiful and gorgeous animation. And so when you grow up with that and the TV shows like Batman, Spider-Man, X-Men, I'm going to throw in Rugrats as well, because Rugrats was a great cartoon too. But it's like we were really built with this idea of what animation was, like hand-drawn animation, and you just don't see that anymore. Because you're right, everything is just, computer, photorealism is actually a really great way to put it. Because I just, and it's such a shame. So whenever a movie that does do animation comes up, and like you said, we will get to it later, it piques your interest because it's become oddly novel now.
And it didn't make my list, but the upcoming Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles also sort of has a sort of a similar vibe to Spider-Verse. And I'm quite excited. When I saw that they're making this, I was like, okay, cool. Yeah. And I watched the trailer. I was actually quite impressed with it. And it looks like it's actually captured the humor and the fun and the playfulness that, I think most TMNT fans grew up on. Yeah. And it looks really cool too. Yeah,
they've kind of fumbled that franchise in a I hate calling everything a franchise now, but like they kind of fumbled that one a little bit, because it was great. Like when we were young, that was everything. We all loved Ninja Turtles. Who didn't love the Ninja Turtles when you're little? But they hadn't really done a great job of moving that into a new for a new generation. I don't think younger people watch Ninja Turtles. I could be wrong. I don't know what children are watching these days, but I don't feel like that's like a thing anymore. Like Ninja Turtles aren't really a thing.
Yeah. Who knows? All right. What is your first pick?
It is a movie that I actually have been able to watch now, so I can talk about it a little bit more. And it's called Past Lives. The director is Celine Song, who is a Korean American, who also, I believe, had a stop off in Toronto as well in Canada. So it's kind of Canadian. I think Canada will definitely claim her as our own. And it is a movie that I sent the trailer to a friend of mine, and she said, and I will just refrain, she is Korean herself, and she went, "This looks like a K-drama in like with Western stylizing." Yeah. And I was like, that's actually one of the greatest ways to put this movie, because for anybody familiar with K-drama, they are so dramatic. They are they're so dramatic, and people love them. And it kind of has a Western vibe to it. And it's we've seen this a lot, especially amongst Asian American filmmakers, where they're blending stuff that they watched growing up from, whether it's Korea, Japan, Hong Kong, Taiwan, whatever, and then mixing in with the Western stuff that we also grew up with. And so you kind of get this really interesting, I think it's interesting anyways, style and type of storytelling that is unique, I think, to our little diaspora, if you will. So this movie, it's about childhood loves. It is about a young woman who leaves Korea at 12 years old and leaves behind like the boy that they're kind of in love, but they're obviously 12 years old. And they don't see each other. They find each other on Facebook 12 years later. She's moved to New York at this point. And then 12 years later after that, they actually finally get to meet. And it is just, I actually think, Dakota, you'd really like this one. It is one of the most romantically shot movies I've ever seen. And I don't know how to explain that further than you just kind of have to watch the movie to know what I mean by that. It's an incredible film, and I love it. And I said that at the very beginning that I don't know if I've seen anything that kind of lands in my top 10. This is probably the biggest exception, that I would be shocked if I don't have this in my top 10 next year, or at the end of the year rather.
Wow.
Because I just really loved it. It's just a movie that it's very simple, and it's a stunning film, and it's going to come out on June 9th in Canada, and I believe in the States as well. It's going to come out on June 9th. So it's not going to be a big movie by any stretch of the imagination, but it's definitely one, if you are into kind of the more slow burn, I don't even want to say romantic movies, but it's just like, it's a slow burn film. It's a bit more drama, and if you like, your K-drama, I think this would be one that people would really enjoy. It's definitely going to be a bit of a sleeper hit, in my opinion. And this actually did premiere at Sundance, but it wasn't available to people who were doing it only online. This was like a strictly in-person thing for Sundance. And I believe it did get a lot of praise out of Sundance as well.
Yeah, it is an A24 film, so I think it's going to hopefully get that push there. But as doing all these A24 movies, sometimes they decide which movies to put their weight behind, and other ones they just sort of let die on the vine. But yeah, it's
also
funny.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I was just going to say, A24 has so many movies now.
Yeah,
like they're becoming to the point that I kind of understand why they have to pick and choose, because there's just, I don't want to say too many, but kind of too many.
There's sometimes too many. Yeah,
it's a lot.
Yeah. Because they're I was watching something recently and about A24, and they're now putting out between 20 and 25 movies a year, and all the other major studios are doing like maybe 15 max, and then you get the smaller distributors, and they're doing even less than that. So they're doing double of what the major distributors are doing and studios are doing, which is crazy.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah. This was funny. I saw the trailer for it. I think it was in front of Blackberry, and afterwards my wife turned to me and she's like, "I can't wait to watch this." And at first I was like, I don't know, this looks so heavy and sad. And then I told you that, and you're like, it's not actually, it's very romantic. And I was like, okay, it just looks interesting. It does look great. I don't know the cast that well. I don't know who Greta Lee is. And TOU was apparently in Decision to Leave, but I don't recall what character he played. But it was nice seeing John Majaro pop up in the trailer after seeing him in First Cow, and such an incredible performance in that as Cookie, the guy who does the baking in that movie, the main character basically. But yeah, I'm excited to see this, and hearing you talk so glowingly about it is definitely up to my excitement level too.
I really like the cast is great. Teo Yoon, who I was not familiar with, but he's incredible in this movie. Like he's so good, especially when you're talking about movies that go over different timelines and stuff. I love seeing the different, like the very subtle ways and sometimes not so subtle ways that directors try to show time passing through just the way the characters look. So not necessarily like aging somebody with makeup or prosthetics, but just like the way they wear their hair, the clothes that they wear, the way that they carry themselves. And I think Teo Yoon, Greta Lee's great as well, but I think Teo Yoon for me was the one who really kind of stole the show for me on that movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm very excited. All right, so the next movie that I want to talk about is going to be one that's going to be no shock to anyone that is a fan of the podcast or knows me personally, and that is Wes Anderson's Asteroid City, which is coming out on June 16th. Now, you don't really need to tell me the plot of a Wes Anderson movie or show me a trailer or anything like that to get me excited. I'm going to watch it regardless, even if I haven't been as high on his work the last few years. Specifically, I really didn't care for French Dispatch. It was fine. It just wasn't my favorite. I didn't like the vignette sort of format. I never really like vignette movies anyways to begin with, because I'm just like, well, if it's, there's a good section, I just kind of want to watch a whole movie of that sort of thing. But this, when the trailer came out, obviously, the cast has been known for a while. It's got such a stacked cast. It's got Jason Schwartzman, Scarlett Johansson, Tom Hanks, Jeffrey Wright, Tilda Swinton, Bryan Cranston, Edward Norton, Adrian Brody, Liv Schreiber, Hope Davis, Stephen Park, Rupert Friend, Maya Hawke, Steve Carell, Matt Dillon, Hong Chow, Willem Dafoe, Margot Robbie, Tony Revolori, Jake Ryan, Jeff Goldblum. That's just reading the poster. Absolutely incredible stack cast.
They shoved all of their names on the poster.
Yes.
That's so stupid. I'm so sorry. They shoved all of those people onto a poster. That's incredible. The poster, though, itself doesn't have anybody, like it doesn't have an actor on it, right? Like it's kind of it's an image of something.
No, there's
the city,
a new poster.
I assume.
No, there's a new poster that basically looks like a class.
Oh,
photo.
really?
Yeah, and so they're all like in like 3 rows sitting, and then it's got the whole list of the cast there. The trailer came out for it, and I thought it was absolutely incredible. It definitely sort of seemed of like Wes Anderson going back to his roots. He's still, if you don't love his style of movie, he's still very much in this shtick of everything is absolutely symmetrical, pastel colors everywhere, people doing weird, awkward things. If you've seen like those TikTok videos of people living their lives like Wes Anderson, he has become a meme upon himself at this point. But I don't care. I'm here for it. And it's got a few actors who have never been in a Wes Anderson movie. Tom Hanks specifically, sort of excites me to sort of see what he's going to do with that. And it's nice that Jeffrey Wright, who probably gave the best performance in French Dispatch, in my opinion, is back with him again. And so many other great actors. Steve Carell is also going to be interesting. Never worked with him as well. Unless, was he in I Love Dogs? I can't remember. I can never remember who's in that cast. Because once again, he's got like 50 A-list actors deep going. Yeah, Bryan Cranston was in I Love Dogs. So yeah, I apologize for that mistake. Are you excited for this one, Rachel? Are you going to watch this one, Rachel?
Okay, so when you started, you said you didn't need to watch a trailer, you didn't need to know the cast, you didn't need to know what the movie is about, and my snarky ass is like, that's because it's all the same. Like, you don't need to, because you know what's going to happen. It's the exact same thing. And kind of, you know what, this is not dissimilar to the Fast and Furious chat that we were having. That as long, if you're into those movies, then you're going to go watch it. If you're not into Wes Anderson at this point, I don't see how you can get into Wes Anderson. And I am kind of in that camp. I really liked Grand Budapest Hotel, which is funny because I've heard some people say, I think, what's your opinion on it? You've said it is the most Wes Anderson. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would probably say that. Yeah, it's a movie that like the first time I watched it, I was kind of so on it, but I've sort of grown my appreciation on it.
I've heard people say it's the most Wes Anderson movie, and then I've heard other people go, it is the least Wes Anderson movie. And I don't really know. This must obviously just comes down to people don't have the same definition of what a Wes Anderson movie is. But other than that movie, I've just never really got into his movies just because I feel like they're kind of similar. Like they're just all kind of the same thing. He has the same shtick, which I do find those TikToks funny because you can really, in the same way that you could be like, this is what a Michael Bay movie is, you could say this is what a Wes Anderson movie is. And I would argue you could say the same, this is what a Chris Nolan movie is. Like those directors have a certain thing to them, a certain quality to them, and you're into it or you're not. Will I watch this movie? I don't know. Maybe. I don't. I think I watched the first 2 vignettes of French Dispatch, and then I turned it off because I just was like, I'm not into this. But any movie that I feel like it becomes a chore and you feel like you have to watch it and you feel like you're pulling your teeth to just having to get into the room to watch it, life's too short. Just don't go watch it unless like there's an actual reason that you need to go watch it. But I don't foresee myself watching it unless you come out and tell me this is the greatest thing that you've ever seen in your life. I mean, even then, I don't know. Even then, I don't know. I won't.
Fine. You and Paulo Bautista, who refuses to watch Wes Anderson movies, we made a bet on Wes Anderson movies or something like that. He keeps talking about how he's finally going to watch Wes Anderson, and I think this is
he's never watched any Wes Anderson films.
Nothing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How does he know he doesn't like them then? No offense, Paulo. I'm just saying. Like, he doesn't know even watched one.
He doesn't know that he doesn't like them. He's just never gotten around to them.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's fair. Because I've tried. I have given Wes a chance. I have really tried with him. I just can't. I just can't do it. I just can't get on board, which is, I think, is fine. There's tons of other, like, I'm trying, like, Michael Bay is actually one I'm very 50-50 on. Sometimes I like his movies. Sometimes I absolutely hate them. Wes Anderson, though, it just seems that I don't even hate his movies. I just don't like them.
There's a few things in, our friendship that could potentially dissolve this relationship. And we both have these things. And for me, it's Wes Anderson.
Yeah, I know you really like him. And I get, like, I do get it. I do get why people like him. I understand the quality of it and like and the humor too. Like, I understand his humor, and I do find him funny. Like, I do think that the different things that he does are funny. I think my problem with him is more just, it just feels like the same thing over and over again. And when it's something like Fast and Furious or even Marvel, where you're kind of like, it's the same stuff over and over and again, I can look at those, especially the Fast movies, and I can say, those are kind of just mindless entertainment. And it's just supposed to be fun. And it's just supposed to be like, they don't take themselves seriously. So they do, like in Fast X, they really lean into this family thing. They say family a lot in these movies. And it's like, they get it. They get that they're a bit of a shtick. Like, they get that they're a meme. Okay, they understand that. Wes Anderson, I still feel like he does take it very seriously. And there's nothing wrong with that. Take your craft seriously. Take your work seriously. But I feel like his movies feel really serious when they feel like they should be less serious. Because it's just the same thing over and over again, in my opinion.
Fine. All right, let's move on. What's
I try not to talk about Wes Anderson, though.
There's a reason why we don't bring him up.
I try really hard just to avoid Wes Anderson because I don't like doing that. I know how much you like him,
and I feel like I also get roasted in our group chat by Brody and Alex too for my love of Wes Anderson. But whatever.
I'll say, though, on June 16th, so Asteroid City comes out. Elemental also comes out that day, which is my next pick, and that is a new Pixar movie. So this is what we were talking about with, we were talking about with the animated movies, how we just don't see that kind of animation anymore. I have seen a few clips of Elemental. Like, was very nicely invited to this little event that they had Peter Son, who's the director, and he was in Toronto, and he talked a little bit about the movie, and we got to see a few kind of clips early on. The animation, like, a lot of people are comparing it to Inside Out, and I can see where that comes from. Like, it kind of has a similar quality of being maybe a little bit more serious than a typical Pixar movie, but it's still really fun and it still has a lot of great humor in it. The animation in this is incredible. I should actually say what the movie is about. So Elemental, they basically look at the elements of the world. So you've got wood, fire, water, or so not wood. Is it wood? Earth?
Earth? I don't know.
Earth, yeah. Firewood. Anyway, the important ones are fire and water. Those are your two important ones. And it's an imaginative world of people existing like they're fire people, they're water people. And the world is made for water people. And we follow this girl who is a fire girl. And she's got her little fire town. And it's very cute. Like, she's on the subway, and then say if the subway takes like a big turn and there's a water person next to her, the water will like dump onto her and half of her face will be extinguished. And she needs to go into her purse and eat some wood chips so that she can kind of pop back up. The animation is really cool, and it's a very cute movie, but it also talks about, like, if you can kind of hear from the description, it talks a little bit about, I suppose about belonging and, you know, finding your place in a world that maybe doesn't feel fit to you and to your traditions and to your cultures and to your values, so on and so forth. It's really incredible, and I can't wait for people to see it, because I do think that this is a bit of a return for Pixar. I think Pixar has done a pretty good job in the last few years of movies, but I feel like they've been very keen on just shoving everything to Disney Plus for some reason. I'm not sure what is going on with Pixar in terms of the Disney family, but this one, though, they do seem to be pushing for a much wider release and like a much bigger kind of campaign of getting people to go to the theater and watch it. It really does look incredible. I think it'll be great for families, and it's also just, if you're into animation or you're into just a good movie, I would say that it's going to be good for adults as well.
I am not super excited for this movie. I don't know.
It might be too cutesy for you. I will say that.
Maybe.
I think it might be too cute for you.
Like, I skipped on Lightyear. Haven't seen it yet. Turning Red was...
Let's not talk about Lightyear.
Yeah, I quite liked Turning Red. Didn't love it.
Mm-hmm.
Luca, I really did love. Soul, I liked a lot. Onward was pretty meh. Toy Story 4, I did not like. Like, their track record has been very mixed lately, and it's not like their heyday of like the late 2000s where just like it was banger after banger there. And
what did you think of Inside Out, though? How does that rate for you?
Oh, I love Inside Out. That's an incredible movie. Yeah, I think that was kind of like. That was probably like the end of their great era.
I agree. Yeah, I agree with that. I think Luca was great, though. I do, and that to me was a shame that although that got released during the kind of the crazy lockdowns, didn't it? Like during a time that most of the world couldn't go to the movie theater, so they ended up shoving it onto Disney Plus. And I agree with you about Turning Red. I liked it. It's not my favorite thing that I think Pixar has ever come out with, but I did like it. But that was another Disney Plus one. And instead of putting Turning Red out into theaters, they went with Lightyear. For obvious reasons, I do understand why they did that. But Lightyear did not do what they hoped it would do. Yeah, I'd agree. I think Inside Out's the last one. But I also think Elemental, I don't want to say it's exactly like Inside Out, because it's not. But it has a similar feeling to it. Like, it has the quality, and I don't mean in terms of the story or even the animation. It's just, there's a certain feeling you get from Inside Out that I think Elemental does the same thing.
It's funny because I feel like Soul also had that as well.
Yeah. Soul's animation was also incredible, wasn't it? I really liked the animation in Soul. I haven't seen the full thing of Elemental, so I can't say whether or not it is better than those two movies. But what I did see, it's pretty great. Like, I think it's really great, and I think at minimum it's going to be a big movie for families to watch, because I think it'll be a great one for younger people. But I think older, like, just as Pixar has typically done in the past, is it makes a movie that is probably aimed more for children, but adults can definitely get something out of it as well.
Yeah, that's fair. Now, your next movie I hadn't heard of until it popped up on your list, so please talk about this one.
All right, so this is Joyride, not the Paul Walker, Lily Sobieski Joyride. I don't know why they kept the same name.
Deadeye's coming, by the way.
Your cousin?
Deadeye?
Where did that come from? You know, I think I get it.
Y'all calling me crazy. Baby. They like Brady.
I love a grand adventure.
Oh, hi. So nice to see an American.
What do you do for work?
It's the cops are doing a bag check.
Oh my God, you're a drug dealer? You're drug dealers now, bitches!
We can't get caught with drugs in China.
You gonna plug or you gonna play?
Group project! We gotta go crazy!
Honey, you good?
Are they coming out? Yeah, but only 7, and I think I put in 8.
Just push, pull, twist it.
It's not a puppet, it's my asshole!
But this comes out on July 7th, and it is directed by Adele Lim. It is so reductive to describe it this way, but it's also the best way to describe it, which is it is an Asian girl trip. It is an Asian, I don't even want to say bridesmaids. What was that road trippy type movie with Cameron Diaz and Christina Applegate? That's a really old movie.
I have no idea what you're
really. You don't know
about.
what I'm talking about? This is an old movie. It's from like the 2000s, I think. But anyways, I think Asian version of Girl Trip.
Who?
Sorry,
Cameron Diaz and who?
Christina Applegate.
I'm gonna look this up
It's,
while you talk.
It's quite an old movie now, but it's basically
The Sweetest Thing.
Yeah. Okay. When did that come out?
2002.
Yeah. Right. So it is early 2000s.
Quite old.
Pulp.
Yeah.
The point is, oh wow, that's like over 20 years old now. Jesus. So this movie, this was another one that, did it come out at Sundance? No, South by Southwest. This premiered at South by Southwest. It had a good amount of buzz behind it, actually. And it just looks fun. And I know that I'm always the one, for obvious reasons, like being like, oh, these Asian American movies, let's go watch them. But this one looks like just kind of the ability to, I don't want to rag on all the Asian American movies that have been talking about immigration and that experience, because I think that those movies are important. And I think that those have been beautifully told. Like there are some really great ones, like Minari is a great one. Rice Boy Sleeps is a great one. But I'm kind of more excited about saying what kind of movies can come from those filmmakers that have nothing to do with the immigrant story. It's just, just letting them do movies about different types of stories and whatever they want to. And this is a comedy, kind of a girls road trippy type movie. And it just looks fun and it looks really cool. And Ashley Park, who, if you've seen Beef, she plays Naomi in it. She's the main character. Stephanie Hsu, who obviously everybody fell in love with her after Everything Everywhere All at Once. She's also in it. I just think it looks like a good time and I can't wait to see it. And it makes me, even if it's not good, and I know that sounds bad, but like, it just makes me more excited that there are going to be movies like this being made. And in a sense, I hope it does well, because I know that people are going to have an eye on it to say, well, if it doesn't do well, then maybe they don't really get that chance again. Like, as in, Asian Americans don't really get the chance again to do a movie like this, which is unfortunate. But I really think it looks good. And from what I've heard from people who came out of South by, it sounds like it's a good, fun time. And it's going to be a great summer movie, I think. So I'm really looking forward to that one.
Yeah. So there's a few thoughts popped in my head while you were talking about this there. And, the idea of having a different kind of Asian American movie. And I think back to, we did an episode several years ago celebrating Black cinema. And I think it was Tony Ofori, the actor who was one of the guests, talked about how he was kind of getting tired of sort of the Black torture porn sort of movies. Like, you don't need every movie about the Black experience to be about slavery and the struggle of being Black and sort of stuff like that. And I think we're kind of at the point where it's like, yes, we've now have the basis of what these, these great immigrant stories of people coming to North America and how it's changing their lives and balancing, their old country ways with fitting in the new sort of stuff. And we can now have movies like Joyride where it doesn't have to do with that at all. It could just be a funny movie, even though coincidentally it is about a girl trying to find her birth mother because she was adopted, or birth parents rather. So I'm very excited about that. And the other thing I want to say is, like, it sort of sucks that we're still at the point where every movie with a predominantly Asian cast is still a referendum on, oh, well, are they bankable? Are people going to come out and watch this movie? What's happening? Like, it seems like with Everything Everywhere All at Once, we had that with Minari, we had that, go on. In the last, like, several years, it seems like every predominantly Crazy Rich Asians, every Asian led cast, we're having this conversation of, but will people go out and see it? I don't know. Maybe it's going to be the last time we get one of these movies, sort of thing. So it's really frustrating that that's still happening today.
It is, but it's also, I mean, I'm not going to give Hollywood any slack here, but it's also like, these things happen slowly. They do happen very slowly. And when I look to, I hate even calling this a genre, but like Black cinema, so films that have predominantly Black casts and Black stories being told, those found their own market. You know, a lot of those movies. So like, if I think back to movies like Think Like a Man, Baby Boy,
the barbershop movies.
Yeah, like those movies were never aimed at mainstream audiences, quote unquote, AKA rather white audiences. Like that was never the intended demographic. And in a different way, I remember there was a movie called Filth. That was James McAvoy in.
Oh yeah.
That came out. It's about a Scottish cop who is like a Scottish dirty cop out in Glasgow, I believe. And he was on a talk show in Britain called Alan Carr, and Alan Carr was saying, like, do you think, because it was getting a release in America, and they go, well, do you think that it might be too British? That movie will be too British for American audiences. And James McAvoy was like, who cares? Like, we make these movies, they are for British audiences, and they're made by British people for British audiences. And if the Americans or whoever else grabs onto it, that's great. Like, that's the kind of the cherry on top. But that's not our intention. Our intention was always to make a British movie for British people. And I love that, because I just thought it's the same thing with the way that, you know, Black filmmakers in the 80s to 90s and even into today carved out their own group, and like Black audiences went, yeah, let's go watch these movies. And they have made it, and they have done very well, actually. And I kind of look at Asian audiences and I wonder if we ever will do something similar. And for some reason, I can't really put my finger on why it is. It might be a cultural thing. It might be something a little bit different, but we've never really done that. We've never really just said, like, we're going to go out and support our own movies. Well, we do that, but not in the same way that I think the Black community has done for their own films. But saying that, they have a longer track record to deal with, whereas our stuff is still pretty new. So I think that this is a conversation that if in 10 some odd years we're still having it, then that is obviously a problem. But I think right now, I'm not that I'm not impatient. I am impatient, but I think that it's just a kind of a slower progress, and you can't expect it to go from 0 to 100 overnight. And, you know, like you said, this movie is not about the immigrant experience, but it does still talk about this one girl going out to find her birth parents in China. Past Lives, another movie, it does talk a bit about, you know, her immigrating from Korea to America, and she marries a white guy, and they talk about that, the complexities of an interracial relationship. So it's kind of finding a different way into those topics that isn't necessarily starting from a child who gets bullied at school for eating rice and eating weird foods, to you know, getting told, oh, you speak English. Like, we've kind of moved away from that, and I think that now we're finding just a different way in. And I just think it's just another step along the road. And so eventually, hopefully one day we can kind of find a place where it's a bit more normal and it's not as novel to be like, oh, there's like an Asian girl trip. Like, even having to say that is very, you know, like, it's reductive, but it's just we're just in the midst of progress happening, as opposed to being at the end point when it has happened.
That said, the trailer looks absolutely hilarious. When you include it on your list, I was like, I don't know what this movie is. So I looked it up, watched the trailer. I'm like, okay, I can't watch any more footage of this movie because they're going to spoil all the funniest parts of this movie. But it looks
That's another
hilarious.
Discussion. I hate trailers right now.
I know.
Ruining movies. But anyways,
All right, so we're going to move on to my next pick, which is Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, and it comes out on July 14th.
Ethan, this mission of yours is going to cost you dearly.
The world is changing. Truth is vanishing. War is coming.
It's been a long time, friend. You've no idea the power I represent. It knows your story and how it ends.
And I don't think it is controversial at all to say that this franchise is just aging like the best wine possible, where every single movie it feels like it is getting better. And you can say that. I don't know about what other franchise you can even talk about where they've had the continuity of the same cast, because you could talk about like stuff like James Bond or whatever, but you know, they reboot it and they continue on from there, where you've had essentially the same cast the whole time, you know, people come in and come out sort of thing, but you've had, you know, Tom Cruise, Ving Rhames for the last few, Simon Pegg, people like Rebecca Ferguson and Vanessa Kirby, all have been there, keep coming and going, all that sort of stuff. And every time it's incredible. And obviously that's because it's centered around the Tom Cruise show and what crazy stunt is Tom Cruise going to do next. But it works, and the fact that it just keeps getting better and better, or at least equal. You can say, oh, this movie's a little bit better, that movie's a little bit better, whatever. The quality is equal every single time is mind-blowing. The fact that it's now, like, almost 30 years on, and it still is this good? Insane. I'm just so excited for this movie.
I am too. I haven't watched any trailers for it. It's so funny. As you were describing it, I'm like nodding my head. And then I'm thinking back to when you were describing Asteroid City and I just kept rolling my eyes. You can't see me, but that's what I was doing. But I completely agree with you. This is, of all those action franchises, this is by far my favorite one. It's incredible that they've been able to outdo themselves. And even though I kind of hesitate to say that they're still grounded, because Ethan Hunt is like a superhero in some sense, but it's not in the same way as, I keep bringing up Fast, but like, it's not like that. Fast and Furious has really just gone off the rails, and it's detached from reality in a great way for their fans. But Mission still feels like you could be like, this could happen. Like somebody could just run off a building like that, even though obviously it wouldn't, but it's just, I find they've struck this really incredible balance in these movies of being heightened and fairly extraordinary, but yet you still kind of feel like this could be something that happens. And I think, you know, like you said, it's Tom Cruise. It's because of him. Because I think he came up in a time when this is what action movies were like. They were slightly heightened beyond what our reality allows, but still feels like there's a part of your brain that goes, oh, maybe that could be a thing. And he just continues on with that. And the day that they decide that they're going to stop doing those movies, I think will be a very, very sad day. Or even the day that, you know, he decides he doesn't want to do it anymore. Or not even he doesn't want to, I guess. My feeling is it's going to come to a point where Tom Cruise physically cannot do these movies anymore. Just because he's getting old.
Is that the thing? No, this guy's going to die doing a stunt. That.
It's incredible. Like, I think he's turning 60 this year, if I'm not mistaken.
It's insane, yeah.
And I'm not saying that when you're 60, you just turn into like a bag of bones, but like, that's insane that he is still able to do things that I'm going to argue a lot of 20-year-olds cannot do. Nope. He could outrun most of us, and I find it it's really incredible that this guy who typically movies like this, they shouldn't work, right? Like, they shouldn't work. We should get really sick of them at some point. But somehow any time that you watch these movies, it feels like it's better than the last one, or at minimum, it just feels the same. And you're just like, yeah, I'm into this. And this is, I didn't like that they did like the part 1, part 2 thing. I find that kind of annoying. Just make it another Mission movie, and then the next one's the next Mission movie. But yeah, I'm super excited for this one too. And this was one of the ones that we had as an overlap. I'm all on board with the Mission movies. And unlike when I went to go prep for Fast X, I was like, I'm going to watch every Fast and Furious movie before this one. I didn't end up doing that. Mission, I will gladly do that. And just even not for a review, just because I feel like watching all the Mission movies, because they are incredible.
I have a feeling that Dead Reckoning Part 2 might be the last one. I've heard that. I don't think they've said anything, which makes me a little suspicious.
I've heard it just in the sense of, like, it does seem that people, because the part 1, part 2 thing, right? Like, that's generally these days, that is how franchises are ending their series or whatever. They're going part 1, part 2. But I don't know. I can't, it's kind of the same way with, like, Betty White. It was like, or Queen Elizabeth. It was like, they're not going to die, are they? Like, they're just going to be around forever. And I feel the same way with Mission movies. Like, they're not going to end. Like, they will always just be around. How do you feel about somebody else taking up the mantle of Ethan Hunt a la James Bond? Would you be okay with that, or do you want them to create a new character?
You mean like how they tried to do it with Jeremy Renner and
kind of, yeah. But like when Tom Cruise officially says like I'm not doing this anymore.
It's crazy. The Mission Impossible movies are so intertwined with the it's going to be a very interesting choice of words here. The cult of personality of Tom Cruise, quite literally and figuratively. Just make a different franchise.
Yeah,
I don't know. You want to do a spin-off? Fine, do a spin-off, but like, I don't know.
But we don't say that about James Bond, though. Like, we don't say to James Bond, like, just make a new spy thing. Like, we're just like, no, keep doing James Bond because we like James Bond as a character and we want to see different. James Bond is kind of the more interesting. I know you guys did an episode about it, but it's like it carries on and we look forward to who's the next Bond. Like, that's big news, right? We don't necessarily say that about Ethan Hunt because, well, Tom Cruise has bogarted that. So I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it either, though, because I've heard somebody the reason I say it is because somebody said, I think it was online or something, must be online. Somebody was like, Mission is basically the American James Bond. And I was like, yeah, kind of, but not really, because James Bond has endured in a way that we haven't seen if Mission's going to do the same thing. Because right now, Mission is so tied to Mission is so tied to Tom Cruise. Whereas I know a lot of people in James Bond, like it's Sean Connery, do or die, it's Sean Connery, but you can't deny that they've had a lot of success with other actors playing that role. I don't know if you can say the same thing about Mission, though.
I think one of the things that might have against it is, other than maybe Keanu Reeves, is there another working actor today that is willing to put his body on the line like Tom Cruise? So if you were to continue, reboot the Mission Impossible, whatever you want to do, is there another actor? Because you're just going to be going, yeah, well, he's not going to be Tom Cruise holding his breath for 10 minutes. He's not going to be Tom Cruise climbing the world's tallest building. He's not going to be Tom Cruise hanging off of a literal airplane as it's taking off. Is someone else going to do that?
He's so ridiculous, Tom Cruise. Like, what's his problem? How does he not value life? Like, I don't get it.
I don't know.
You're right, though. You're right. That is a really good point. But maybe there's like a younger actor out there who hasn't been. But then, I mean, health and safety wise, who's going to let them do it too? Don't forget, like an actor saying, "I want to do it." Like right now, Tom Cruise can say, "I'm going to do this," and you're Tom Cruise, so you can do it. Even he's Keanu, also the
producer.
Like, I'm sure studios are like, "Keanu, can you please stop?" And he's like, "I'm Keanu Reeves. Like, no, I'm going to do these things." There's not really any other actors out there who have that kind of sway with a studio to just let them do what they want to do.
I'm just going to have an on-air meeting here. I think before Dead Reckoning Part 2 or after it comes out, we do like a whole retrospective of the series.
Done.
Cool.
Done.
Great. Love it. All right. I'm going to move on to my next pick. And, July 21st is going to be the most popular day. It's going to be the most infamous day in movie history, I think, of this millennium, because we've got
of this millennium. Wow.
Yes. Oh yes, that's how hyperbolic I'm going to be. I'm going to talk about the first one, and that is Barbie, the new Greta Gerwig movie. The newest trailer just came out, and I haven't watched it yet. I'm probably going to do it after this is over. I'm just so excited for this movie. I love the humor that Gerwig is bringing to this. And the fact that she's co-writing it with Noah Baumbach is just absolutely hilarious. I love their partnership. I don't know. Like, the idea of a Barbie movie is just so ridiculous and so stupid. You're like, how could this possibly work? And then like you see the pictures of it and you're just like, oh, you know what? This is how you do a Barbie movie. This is how you both make it serious and absolutely ridiculous and over top at the same time, while respecting the history and the legacy of this, character, this IP, while making it something totally unique and new and modern and all that sort of stuff. And I don't know, like the cast is absolutely incredible. I love how all the women in the movie are named Barbie and all the guys in the movie are named Ken. That's the funniest thing in the world to me. Like that's absolutely incredible. I don't know. I'm just so excited for this movie. And I think at this point, everyone has kind of made up their mind of whether or not they're excited for it or not.
I can't say I'm excited about it. This wasn't on my list, but I am very interested in it. Like I actually haven't watched, I watched the first I don't even know if they considered that a trailer, if it was like a
teaser
first
one with the 2001.
Yeah, the 2001 one. Yeah. I love that. I thought that was really great. And I honestly, they could have stopped there. I don't think that they needed to keep putting out these different trailers at this point, but I'm very curious about it. And I wasn't a big Barbie fan growing up. I had like maybe a couple. There was one that I had that was a troll Barbie, and because it came with a free troll, and I was really excited for that. Other than that, though, I've never been big on Barbies. Like that was not really my toy of choice. I had an older brother, or I have an older brother rather. So I didn't have anyone to play Barbies with, basically. But that was never really my thing. However, when I got older, I read this really interesting article about Barbie, about like her being kind of a feminist icon for the time period, which is not something that I had necessarily attached to that toy ever. Because to me, Barbie was a bit of a ditz and a bit of like, I like pink and all that kind of crap. But I found that really interesting. So then when I heard that Greta Gerwig was making a movie for it, I thought that's really interesting. That's a really interesting pairing. I think her and then Sofia Coppola is the other director that I would be like, if either of them had announced like, oh, we're doing this Barbie movie, I think that would have been really interesting to me, because I can't imagine she's just going to take either the Aqua Barbie girl kind of look on it, like the very campy, very silly look to it, without there also being something a bit more nuanced and complex to balance that out. And I think Greta Gerwig, I am divided on her. I really like her version of Little Women. I think that was really great. But I do think she is probably the best director to do this film if Sofia Coppola is not going to do it. So I'm curious about it, but I'm not as excited about it. It is one of those things that I find funny on July 21st, apparently the biggest movie day of the millennia. I really find it funny, like people kind of doing that movie, and then obviously the other one is Oppenheimer as like a double feature. Like you go into Barbie, and then right after you head into Oppenheimer. Two very different vibes, very very different vibes. But yeah, I'm curious about this one. I think it'll be a really interesting movie, and it's gotten a lot of hype. Like I feel like people are interested in it in a way that is different. I feel like people are interested in Oppenheimer because they like Chris Nolan. But I think that Barbie, there's something, I don't even know how to describe it, but there's something about this movie that has interested people in a way, it has engaged people in a way that I don't think Oppenheimer necessarily has. I'm curious what the box office is going to look like between the two. That'll be fun.
It's going to be very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
for sure. All right. So we've sort of transitioned a little bit into Oppenheimer. Do you want to talk about it?
So it's my boy, Chris Nolan. I feel like there are two film bros in this world. You're either a Quentin Tarantino film bro or you're a Chris Nolan film bro. I am a Chris Nolan film bro. I really like his movies. I dig all of them. There's not one that I look at and I go, I don't like it. I mean, there's ones that I like less than others, but I think the story of Oppenheimer is a really interesting one for him to take on as well. So the movie, it's obviously about Oppenheimer, and it's about him building the atomic bomb. And what we can only assume is it's going to be about the fallout, pun intended, of the mental anguish that he went through, knowing that he had built this thing that really could destroy the world, and he had built some technology behind it that could see the end of the world. And it's based on a book called American Prometheus. If you haven't read it, highly recommend you do. It's a great book. Chris Nolan, I think, I don't know what he's planning on doing in terms of like time, because that's his thing, right? Like he like jumps time all the time. But I think it would be hard to be a film fan in a way and kind of ignore this movie in the same sense that like you can't ignore Barbie, because there's something about these two movies that are just really compelling in who's directing it and what the story is. And then there's also the kind of the fun little competitive backstories of Chris Nolan having left Warner Brothers. And this is his first movie with Universal, where, assuming they gave him a lot more freedom, because I think Universal has picked up a lot of directors recently. So Jordan Peele has a long-term deal with them, and the Daniels as well, after Everything Everywhere All at Once. So it seems like Universal is becoming a studio that directors are going to, because I can only assume they're getting a type of freedom that other studios aren't affording them. Barbie is a Warner Brothers movie, which is Chris Nolan's previous home. So I feel like it was a very purposeful thing for the two of them to put their movies debuting on the exact same week. And I am all here for that pissing war. It is amazing.
Yeah, it's frustrating that Tenet was so bad that I have tempered my excitement for Oppenheimer, despite the fact that I am also a huge Nolan film bro. I'm a bigger Tarantino film bro. That's our divide here. But it's frustrating that I'm just like, yeah, I'm sure it's going to be good, but like, I'm just not as excited as I probably would have been if Tenet hadn't bombed as hard as it did for me.
I love Tenet though. That's the thing. I did really, really enjoy Tenet, and yeah, I again, maybe Nolan's becoming that. Maybe he's becoming a Wes Anderson. You're either into it or you're not. Like, you're either into his movies or you're not at this point, because they all do have a similar vibe to them as well. Like, I can't deny that his movies have a very, very similar vibe to them. I get that. I mean, are you gonna watch both on opening weekend, do you think, or are you gonna delay one for the week after?
I'll probably not see either on opening weekend because I don't like going to movies on opening weekend.
That's true. Yeah, you never do. Yeah.
I know. But I do plan to watch both of them. I'll probably see both in theaters.
I think Barbie must not be getting an IMAX release then, because Oppenheimer definitely is. And that is the one that I feel like it would benefit more from IMAX. Because it should be noted that Chris Nolan felt the need to actually build a bomb to set off. We talk about Tom Cruise being like a madman, but Chris Nolan too. I don't know what his problem. Like, why would you build a bomb? Like, I get that. I get it. He's a big like practical effects guy, and then using CGI to touch up like those scenes in Tenet of them driving backwards. Like, they did actually drive backwards. Like, and that's kind of nuts. But you know, it's. I feel like building a bomb replica is maybe a step too far. I feel like, look, I wonder if that was the dividing point where Warner Brothers was like, you're not doing that. And Chris Nolan's like, fine, I'm going to Universal.
Christopher Nolan embodies the quote from Jurassic Park of, your scientists were so preoccupied with whether they could, they didn't stop to ask if they should.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, Jurassic Park ended fine, didn't it?
Yeah.
It was fine, right?
Everyone mostly lived.
Not everyone, but the people we cared about still lived. So whatevs. Yeah. Go Chris Nolan. I'm still rocking with him. I still really like him.
All right, I'm going to move on to my next pick, and that is the new Taika Waititi film, Next Goal Wins, which comes out on September 22nd.
It's known as the beautiful game, but let's face it, it's a complicated game, guys. Soccer, as you like to call it, is like life. Next season, I think we have a real shot.
I'm sorry, Thomas, did nobody tell you? You're fired. Good news is, you got two options.
Option one, that's where you're currently at.
Or
American Samoa.
Are you serious?
This movie has kind of long been in production. It feels like we've been hearing them talk about it for years now, but it's finally getting a release date, and it's about a Dutch soccer coach who takes over to coach the American Samoa team. And they were infamously terrible, and how he could make them a little bit better. Taika Waititi, I feel like the theme of this episode is directors you either love or you hate, and Taika Waititi has definitely become one of those people. And as much as I complain about Tenet not being good for me, and so that's why it's tempered my expectations of Oppenheimer, despite the fact that Thor: Love and Thunder really sucked, that did not temper my excitement for this, and I think it's because it's not a Marvel movie is the biggest thing. I don't know. I love Waititi's humor, and he's got some fantastic New Zealand actors that he's worked with many times before showing up in this, including the great Rachel House, who is always hilarious in everything she does. I'm just very excited for this movie, and the trailer looks absolutely hilarious, and, it is my sense of humor to a T, which is, Taika Waititi at his best.
I like Taika Waititi. I think that... what is that Thor movie called? Clearly, I like him
Ragnarok?
So much. What's his Thor?
You talk about Thor Ragnarok, the good
Ragnarok,
one, or the bad
thank you.
one?
No, Ragnarok. That to me is probably one of the better. It is one of my favorite. I shouldn't say better. It is one of my favorite Marvel movies, and all the whole purpose of that or the whole reason for that rather is Taika Waititi, and he brings I'm very on board with his brand of humor as well, although I kind of feel like he kind of goes into the Ryan Reynolds territory of it gets a bit quippy and it gets a bit annoying at times because it just feels like the same. I keep complaining it's the same thing over and over again, but I do like him, and I think that he's a very interesting filmmaker. I don't know too much about this. This is a sports movie, so I generally like watching sports movies. And yeah, I'm interested in this as well. I don't know. I find the release date for it really interesting because that's usually in the thick of awards time, right? Like that's usually when they kind of put those out. And I'm curious if they think that they have something that is quote unquote worthy of that time period, because September 22nd is right after TIFF, and Venice is wrapped up at that point as well. So yeah, I'm curious in that sense too, but because it feels almost more like a summer movie to me. That's just my feeling on it. But
yeah, if I remember correctly, Jojo Rabbit also, because I saw it at TIFF, and then 2 weeks later it was in theaters. So
yeah, it might be coming out at TIFF. Yeah.
For some reason, I think Waititi just works with that release date of getting out there early because he is kind of a bit of a word of mouth director.
He is, yeah, that is a good point. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be interesting, and like you said, it's nice to see him do something that's not a Marvel movie, which is kind of a funny thing now when you look at these directors and be like, I kind of want to see them do something that's not Marvel. I could even say the same thing about Chris McQuarrie for the Mission movies. As much as I like him in the Mission movies, I'm like, I kind of want to see him do something else now because they've just been doing the same thing for a little while now. So it's a nice little breath of fresh air for Taika. And I like that it's a New Zealand film as well. It's that, returning to your roots thing, I suppose. But I like that he went home, quote unquote. He went home.
Yeah. Even though it's not quite New Zealand, it is American Samoa, but still similar.
But he's
Maori
isn't it?
culture.
Is it considered a New Zealand movie? In terms of production and financing? Or is it an American
No, it's
movie?
an American-British film.
Oh, never mind then. He did not go home.
Yeah. And they filmed it in Hawaii, which makes sense.
He did not go home then. Never mind.
No.
Taika did not go home. Forget it.
All right. What is the next movie you want to talk about?
Good question. Oh, it's Killers of the Flower Moon, which I mentioned it earlier in terms of it having its premiere over at Cannes a couple weeks ago. It's coming out on October 6th. It is directed by the great Martin Scorsese and has Robert De Niro, Leonardo DiCaprio, and I should have looked this up ahead of time. But it is based off of a true crime novel. Actually, I don't even want to call it a true crime novel. Sorry, that kind of paints it in a very specific light. But it is a story about Lily Gladstone was the other actress I was trying to think about. Lily Gladstone, and Brendan Fraser is also going to be in it. It is about the Osage murders that happened in Oklahoma in not the late 1800s, the early 1900s. And
yeah, the 1920s, yeah.
It's an incredible story for people who don't know. There is a book, and I would highly recommend the book. It's Killers of the Flower Moon. It's written by David Gran. It is, the American government, and obviously their relation to Native Americans is the same thing with Canada and our relation to Indigenous people, where they kind of pushed them off and said, this is your land. We don't want you in our land, so have this land. And then it turns out the land that the American government pushed them into was incredibly rich with oil reserves. So overnight, in a sense, the Osage people became some of the wealthiest people in the country and probably in the world at the time. And then mysteriously, and these murders are still unsolved for the most part, many members of the Osage community started being killed and started going missing. And so this film talks about the FBI investigation, but also goes into what was going on within the Indigenous communities themselves. It's just a mind-blowing story that it astounds you to think that it's real, that this actually happened. This is not, that's why I hate to say it's true crime, because it's history. Like, this is a part of American history, and there is an element of true crime in it. But with Martin Scorsese as the director, I think a lot of people were a little bit kind of eyebrow cocking these days, because this is a story. This is an Indigenous story. This is a story that should be told from their perspective versus the perspective of the FBI. And he's done a lot of interviews after Cannes about his decision to kind of flip the perspective on who was going to be the narrator of this story, who was going to own this story. But I think it's going to be probably one of the biggest cinema movies of the year. It's going to be the one that people are going to be talking about a lot in terms of the content, but if Cannes is anything to go off of, apparently DiCaprio and De Niro are good, which might surprise people, but they're good. They're apparently really talented actors who are going to be great in this. And Lily Gladstone, from what I've heard, has really comes out, and I guess you could call it like a breakthrough role for her. So I'm looking forward to it. I know you are as well. It's another one, like similar to the Barbie and the Oppenheimer thing, is if you're into movies, this is definitely one that has probably been on your radar for at least a year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm excited for it too. Once again, kind of similar to the Christopher Nolan thing. I haven't been too crazy over the top for Scorsese's most recent films. Obviously, The Irishman was his last movie. I was not a fan of it at all. Did not like it. Rolling Thunder Review, the Bob Dylan fake documentary / real documentary. I liked parts of it, but not all of it. Silence was a movie I didn't really care for, and I know a lot of people adore. So we're going back quite a bit to like the early teens for me to really love a Scorsese movie.
Can I say though?
Sorry. See this.
Okay, no, continue. Because maybe
I was just gonna say that said, I'm going to see this movie regardless.
Okay. My question for you is going to be, yes, maybe his last few, because I think him and Nolan are very different in terms of Scorsese's been around for ages, right? Like he's been around when Nolan was probably like a teenager at that point. So even though maybe the last couple or handful of Scorsese films hasn't worked for you, and I think Spielberg might be somebody similar to who we can kind of throw in, because I know some people didn't really like his last few movies too. Does he not carry goodwill for you just from the fact that he is Martin Scorsese?
Yes, but also with the caveat of we've sort of seen time and time again as, some of these directors get into their later years, they just don't have the same bite and energy that they used to. So it's a little bit of diminishing returns. While the skill is there, and compositionally, they're still going to make very gorgeous movies to look at, and that doesn't diminish. But the types of project they choose and the energy involved in all that sort of stuff sort of wanes. Specifically, we can look at an actor like Robert De Niro in this movie, who goes from being probably one of the greatest actors ever to at times one of the biggest punchlines. Him and Al Pacino, sort of thing.
I find though, funny enough, I just watched De Niro's recent movie about a father, and he's actually kind of good in it, but it is that curmudgeon-y role of, that's not if we told like people in the 70s that De Niro was going to be making movies like this later, they'd be like, excuse me. But But Scorsese, for me, I know what you mean by like he doesn't have the same, and you can feel it in his movies. He doesn't have the same energy because he's 80. Like he is an 80-year-old man and he's still working. And I find that though part of what intrigues me the most about him and what I gravitate to him is that I wasn't a huge fan of The Irishman either. I can't say that it is one of his best movies. It certainly is not one of his best movies. And it's not one that I've ever gone back to rewatch, partly because it's just very, very long movie. But there was something about it that I found really interesting in that it is such a subdued movie. And it is so depressing in a way because it is about a man reflecting on his life and whether or not it was worth it. And so to me, when I look at Scorsese, it's like his choices as a director have, I've always thought, just equaled where he is in his life. And I don't know if another director has really done something like, I'm sure many have, because it's natural. Like the type of projects that you gravitate towards are going to change as you mature and what's going on with you. But I kind of appreciate that Scorsese doesn't have the same Raging Bull energy, the same, like Casino and Goodfellas. Like he doesn't have that anymore because he's 80 and I don't expect him to. So I like this new phase of his director career of him picking different types of projects. And he has a really good interview in Deadline where he talks about like now that he's 80, he looks back and he references Akira Kurosawa when he got his Oscar, and something that he had said, which was like, now that you're so old, you look at all these things that are available to you. You want to do so much, but the thing is you're old. And so you just don't really have the energy to do all of those things anymore. But it's like his curiosity and his drive and motivation is so high right now, the highest it's probably ever been. But because he is an older man, he just doesn't have the physicality or the energy to match that, which is kind of depressing in a way. But I don't know. I find Scorsese to be just such an interesting director from that point of view. And so even if I didn't really get on with his last few films either, he's one of those directors that anything that he'll watch, or anything he makes, I will absolutely go out and watch it because I find him to be, his portfolio of work to be really, really interesting.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. And it is why I am still going to watch this movie regardless, I think.
Yeah, it's because it's Martin Scorsese. How can you not go watch? Yeah. And it's De Niro and Leo. Like, that's the other thing, too, is like those are his two biggest actors that he's worked with in his career, right? So they were in a movie together, I think, back in the 90s. I can't remember the name of it now. I want to say maybe About a Boy. I could be wrong.
Yeah, This Boy's Life.
This Boy's Life. Yeah, thank you. About a Boy is a Hugh Grant movie, which is a great movie. But I love that the two of them are doing another movie together. And it's kind of I'm really digging this stage of Scorsese's career because I feel like it's very humble in a way. And for a man that directed Goodfellas and Casino, it's interesting seeing that humility in him.
100%. Okay, I'll go on to my last pick, and that is, we've been talking about Marvel and our distaste for it, but I'm going to mention a Marvel movie, and that is Kraven the Hunter, which is coming out on October 6th. And there are two reasons why I'm excited about this. Number one, it is being directed by J.C. Chandor, who we briefly talked about Chandor on the episode with Bill Antonio, the A24 retrospective for While We're Young, interestingly enough, that came up. But he's made 4 movies so far, and 3 of them are some of the best movies of the last 20 years. And that's Margin Call, All Is Lost, and A Most Violent Year. Absolutely adore those movies. I really did not like Triple Frontier, his Netflix movie. And so I'm hoping that was sort of a one-off issue where maybe things were going wrong with it. I don't know. Maybe he didn't have full control of it, whatever. I don't know. But I'm hoping hoping him working with Marvel, he can go back to what made him so great. Now, obviously, that's really asking a lot since Marvel is so in control of everything. But the other reason I'm very excited for is the cast is absolutely stacked. Aaron Taylor Johnson is playing Kraven the Hunter, who I have no idea what this character is about, honestly. I haven't even looked up to it. I don't care. But then you've got Christopher Abbott and Alessandro Nivola, who are two actors I really adore and do great supporting performances. Christopher Abbott, I think, has just been aching to break out to mainstream status the last couple of years and really has not had that hit. And hopefully maybe this will be that hit for him. And Ariana DeBose, recent Oscar winner for West Side Story, is also in this movie too. So there's very exciting people involved in the production of this movie.
Yeah, I don't really have much to say about this one. I'm on the Marvel fatigue train. I think that a lot of people are on. I do really like Aaron Taylor Johnson, though. I think that he's great. He was great in Bullet Train. That's a movie that not a lot of people like to talk about last year. Yeah, I love him in pretty much everything that he's been in. I don't think he's done a bad performance. But yeah, I don't know. I Marvel for me, I kind of want to see them come back because I feel like it's become almost sad how mediocre their movies have become. But you know, it will be interesting just from I guess like a case study perspective of what movie is it going to be of theirs that brings people back, that makes people excited again. Because I don't know what has their latest Marvel movies been? I guess Ant-Man was the last one, right? Ant-Man?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ant-Man was the last one.
And then I don't think anything else is coming in between Ant-Man and Kraken. I could be wrong. I don't think
Kraven?
So. Right, Kraven. I'm really into this movie. It's not Kraken.
No, I'm pulling it up right now. What do we have next? Oh, Guardians of the Galaxy. Just came out. You just watched it. You just reviewed it.
Right. Guardians. Okay. I did like that movie too. That's funny. But you know, nothing's coming out between Guardians and this one though. Kraven.
No. And also, this is really interesting. I'm on the Wikipedia page and it's not even showing up on here. Is it not considered a MCU movie? That can't be.
I thought it
Crowe's
was.
in this. Am I going crazy? I have no idea what's going on. I don't know what's going on with this movie. You know, there's been no stills of it released, no trailer released, nothing like that. And it's supposedly coming out October 6th.
It is under the Sony banner.
Oh,
that's why
okay.
It's not an MCU movie.
That's why. Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, it's under Sony. I'm now on board for this movie. I'm in. I'm back in. Oh, I had no idea that Sony still had beyond X-Men and Spidey, that they even had anything still.
Well, he's a Spider-Man villain, which is why.
Oh, that makes sense then. Okay, yeah. Oh, fascinating. Yeah, that's not considered part of the MCU then. Interesting.
Yeah, so like I said, I literally have not done any research into it. It's the fact that JC Chandor is making a movie is what has me excited.
And like a superhero movie on top, like everything. Like I think that's really interesting. Like the guy who did a Most Violent Year is going to do a superhero movie. Yeah. It doesn't really equate. Oh, that is really interesting that it's under MCU because they did pull. I mean, Marvel did pull Spider-Man back, but I guess it didn't. I mean, they still have.
Well, they were co-productions,
Venom and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
So, very, very interesting. All right, I'm into this now. Let's go watch this in October. It's gonna be great. It's gonna be
amazing. All right, what is your last movie, Rachel?
The last movie I'm going to pick is one that did not show up on your list, which is Dune Part 2. And it is my personal favorite director at the moment, Denis Villeneuve.
In the shadows of Arrakis lie many secrets. But the darkest of them all may remain. The end of House Atreides. Your father didn't believe in revenge. What if Paul Atreides were still alive?
Coming back to finish the first movie, basically, because the first movie does feel kind of incomplete. So, I don't think I really need to describe this movie because if you're listening to this, you probably did watch Dune last year. Was it last year Dune came out? Or 2 years?
No, it was 2 years ago.
Oh my God. My concept of time is really out there. But this one, they've added Florence Pugh, they've added Austin Butler, and I'm sure a bunch of other people who I can't remember at the moment. But it's the continuation off of Dune Part 1. And I'm really excited to see how he finishes this. It's a book that, we don't need to rehash all this, but it is a book that people have long said it was unadaptable. It was just going to be really difficult. And I think that Denis has come the closest that anybody has before, save for a television series that a lot of people have been telling me to watch, because apparently the television series does it really well. But in terms of films, was definitely better than David Lynch's, but also David Lynch crammed 2 movies into one, where Denis got the chance to do both. But funny enough, though, they didn't greenlight Part 2 when they greenlit Part 1. So he made Part 1 not knowing if he was actually going to even be able to get a Part 2 done, which I find slightly fascinating. But yeah, I'm excited to see how they wrap it up, and the new characters that are going to come in. I love Denis. He is a very fascinating filmmaker to me. And I understand you weren't not that you weren't a big fan of Part 1, but I think that you looked at it as it's an incomplete film. So you can't really judge it without Part 2. But yeah, it's coming out. Oh, sorry. Did I say when it's coming out? I didn't. November 3rd. And this will probably be another one of those movies that will need to be seen on IMAX, because it looked really great on IMAX, and the Part 1 looked really great on IMAX rather. So yeah, don't really have much to say about Dune Part 2 that hasn't already been said.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'm going to watch it once again, like I've mentioned on other movies here. I was fine with Dune Part 1. I did feel it was an incomplete movie, and so it was really hard to feel strongly about it one way or another. And so it's really going to be, how does he stick this landing? Now, I have faith in Denis Villeneuve. He is one of the greatest working filmmakers right now. I don't think anyone that's not a controversial or shocking thing to say at all. Many people feel that way. So I'm going to be very excited to sort of see, does he stick the landing or not? That's really the big question. The trailer does look incredible. The first trailer also for Dune 1 looked incredible too. And I was not disappointed by the visuals of it, just a little bit by the way it all unfolded. So I'm going to be very curious to see how it all unfolds here.
One thing I'm interested in, and it could just be the way that the articles I've read, and maybe I just haven't researched enough, but it doesn't seem like they are absolutely continuing with the Dune story. Like, I don't know where they're ending with Part 2, but it doesn't sound like there are plans right now to do because I can't remember how many books are in the series, but there are a number of books, and it doesn't sound like they're really going to continue with them, unless it's the same thing as with Part 1, where they're waiting to see how this one does, and then maybe if it does well, then it keeps going. But I find that a bit interesting that even Denis hasn't really expressed much interest, and I could be wrong. If I am wrong, please let me know, that they're going to continue this on beyond Dune Part 1 and Dune Part 2. And considering how much IP is there, I find that interesting.
I think it's because the other books aren't really the Paul Atreides story, because they do significant time jumps and stuff like that. And so I wouldn't be shocked maybe if Dune Part 2 is super successful, they just bring in a different director and to do other Dune adaptations.
It also doesn't feel very Denis Villeneuve to keep
doing these?
Yeah, I think these are the movies that kind of stick out in his filmography as being they stick out because he does weird stuff, usually really small weird things. I'd actually like to see him come back and do something little and weird,
something like Prisoners or Enemy, or something
Prisoners
like that.
Sicario too. Those were big movies, but not in the way that Dune's a big movie. Dune's a very specific type of thing. But yeah, I'd like to see him kind of go back to doing something like that, or even go back to do a French movie, a French Canadian film. That would be fun.
I would love that.
Yeah. But actually, you're probably right. They're probably, after they finish this, if Warner's does want to continue on with it, probably another director comes in, and then Denis gets the executive producer credit and still gets paid.
Yeah.
Good for him.
I could totally see that for sure. Okay, yeah, that is our list of movies that we are most excited for this year. I think we came up with a pretty good list overall. We obviously didn't talk about everything that we may be excited about. I don't really have any honorable mentions. I don't know if you do either.
No.
No?
No.
Okay, yeah. You know, we talked for an hour and a half so far. I think that's a really good ending place. So I'm very excited to see all of these movies. I think there's only maybe like one or two movies on this entire list that I might not end up seeing right away. But we'll see how that goes out. But Rachel, what have you been working on? Where can people find you? What do you want to promote? All that fun stuff.
Of course, go to what is it called? The Asian Cut, and we have new reviews and interviews there. I think I had already put. I haven't been on the show for so long. It's been a gap. But in terms of my own stuff, what did I do? I think I recently reviewed You Hurt My Feelings and About a Father, which is the De Niro movie. Otherwise, yeah, you go to rachelkh.com for all of my stuff, and I'm on Twitter at _RachelKH.
Amazing. Well, this has been a That Shelf podcast. Visit thatshelf.com for more great film discourse. You can follow the show on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at contrazoompod. What movie are you most excited for this year? Let us know. Send an email to contrazoompod@gmail.com. Thank you to Eric and Kevin Smale for the theme music and to Stephanie Pryor for the logo design. If you like to listen to podcasts on YouTube, we do post all episodes there as well. And if you really like the show, consider tipping us on coffee. Thanks for checking us out.
Thank you.